Hello, my name is Philippe Girard, a professor in the history department at McNeese State University.
And I'm Chance Gordon from history department at McNeese. Welcome to Your Grandma Rocks, where we explore the lives of famous women in history.
Welcome and bienvenue à nos amis francophones. Vous écoutez la radio de l'Université McNeese.
On the program today, Music and History, as we retrace the life of a remarkable woman. She may have been the greatest blues singer ever.
The empress of blues, as they called her. Her name was?
Bessie Smith. She was indeed a very special lady. She even inspired other great musicians, such as Billie Holiday.
So I assume along the way we will hear some songs by Bessie Smith?
Oh yeah, her first song will be St. Louis Blues by Bessie Smith.
Bonjour and welcome back to Your Grandma Rocks. We just listened to St. Louis Blues by Bessie Smith. Je m'appelle Philippe Girard.
And I am Chance Gordon. Today we are exploring the life of blues singer Bessie Smith.
You referred to her earlier as the empress of the blues, so she was born a princess then?
Her life was actually not as great as most would believe.
Well, she was famous, and fame that must have come with a lot of money, right? So what is so bad about that?
Well, let's start at the beginning.
Please do. And as a note to our listeners, Chance Gordon is a graduating senior here in the history department at McNeese. He is doing his senior thesis on the history of the blues, so he is the one who did all the research for our show today. All right, Chance, take it away.
Bessie Smith was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee in 1894 to Laura and William Smith.
So do you have a more precise date for her, like a birthday or something?
There is, but it's not really reliable. Bessie Smith was known for giving the wrong birthday when she was younger to make herself older, and when she was older to make herself younger.
I've learned not to ask a woman her age. Very ungentlemanly.
Smith was the sister to 7 siblings. However, when she was only an infant, she lost her father. And by the time she was 8 or 9, she lost her mother.
8 kids, no parents. Wow. What happened to her after that? I mean, did someone take them in?
Her oldest sister, Viola, took her in. Viola took care of all of the Smith siblings.
That seems like a tough ask to ask of a young woman, 8 siblings.
The sister's life solely revolved around her siblings, but she made it work for them. She had a strict rule for them to follow. And when they were able to work, they worked.
So that's how Bessie Smith got her career started?
Correct. Once she was old enough, she and her brother, Andrew, became street performers. He was on the guitar, and she sang and danced.
So what about school? She was still young at that point, right?
She did. However, she only made it to about 8th or 9th grade before dropping out. She also suffered from bullying. This may explain her take nothing from no one attitude later on in her life.
And we're dealing with the early 1900s, right? So not the best time to be a black woman in Tennessee. I remember doing a show on Josephine Baker, who also grew up in Missouri around the same time. And Josephine Baker, she ended up just fleeing to New York City and eventually to France, just because that was the only way to escape the life that she faced back home.
Well, Bessie Smith also became a performer, like Josephine Baker. It was in part due to her brother Clarence. He was someone Bessie Smith looked up to. He got his shot in show business and left without telling anyone. He later came back with an opportunity for his sister Bessie, but it was only as a dancer.
A dancer? Wait a minute, I thought she was a singer.
She was, but the company her brother worked for only wanted her as a dancer. It was an opportunity brought to her, and she ran with it.
So when does this legendary singer get to sing?
Soon, but first she had to meet Gertrude Rainey, also known as Ma Rainey, aka the Mother of Blues.
So how did those two women meet?
They met each other while performing. After their show, Rainey heard Smith sing, and she knew that she had the talent in the world to be a blues singer.
So the Mother of the Blues became a mentor to the Empress of the Blues.
Exactly. However, there is a funny story how that came about. Well, it said that Smith was put in a burlap sack, kidnapped, then dropped off at the feet of Ma Rainey, and then from then on, she taught her the blues.
Is that true? Because that story sounds weird.
No, but it was what the press were saying at the time when they began to perform. Rainey only taught Smith tips and tricks, and Rainey was more of a mother figure to Smith.
Smith lost her mother at a young age, so, well, that part of the story about needing a surrogate mother of sorts, that sounds true. So anyway, do we have any music by the Mother of the Blues?
Of course we do. Let's listen to Moonshine Blues by Ma Rainey.
I don't
Welcome back. I'm Chance Gordon, co-host of Your Grandma Rocks, your favorite women's history show on KBYS.
Et je suis Philippe Girard. Vous écoutez la radio de l'Université McNeese.
Today we are exploring the life of Empress of Blues, Bessie Smith.
Before the break, we learned of her rough childhood and also about the beginnings of her music career.
Her career would kick off after meeting her mentor, Ma Rainey, aka the Mother of Blues. Bessie began to perform as a teenager around 1913, making her only $10 a show at Atlanta's 81 Theater.
$10 may not sound like much today. We're taping this late in 2022 in the midst of a big inflation surge. But in 1913, it wasn't that bad for a night's work. And by the way, was she well received as a young artist performing for older adults?
Oh, she was a hit. They liked her so much so that when she would finish a song, they would throw money on stage. After every song, she made an extra $3 to $4.
Even better than that, then. $10 plus tips. I'm starting to wonder if I made the right career choice teaching history. But anyway, you tell us she was pretty popular even at a young age.
She was still unknown in the grand scheme of the blues genre, but her local popularity was through the roof.
So you said that this was around 1913 when she started to perform the blues. So did World War I affect her shows in a way? Because that conflict would begin in 1914 or 1917 for the U.S.
No, the wars had not hurt her shows. After all, the U.S. joined late and didn't fight long. It was the flu pandemic that affected her greatly, as most clubs and theaters had to close.
The great flu pandemic of 1919. Everyone had forgotten about it, and then COVID hit. So that pandemic, did that discourage her? I mean, after all, either she was out of work, or she would have to work, but then in dangerous conditions.
No, it only motivated her. When the flu began to get under control, she traveled doing shows wherever she could. Around the 1920s is when her career began to get hot. People were starting to know the name Bessie Smith.
The roaring 20s. That would have been a good time to be in show business. People were really looking for some kind of release after the trauma, World War I, and then the flu. And so when she established her reputation, did she get, scouted by record companies?
Not yet. It would take these companies 3 to 4 more years to find the Empress of Blues.
Well, what took them so long to find her then?
Well, most recording companies weren't looking to sign black women at the time.
I see that. So what changed their mind?
Mamie Smith. Mamie Smith was the first black woman to be recorded on a solo performance. That song sold more than 100,000 copies.
Money talks.
Exactly. Bessie Smith was signed to Columbia Records in 1923. This would mark the beginning of her recording career. The company expanded her reach by putting her music in Race Records.
Race Records? What is that?
Race Records were records that were marketed to African Americans. They put her first record, Downhearted Blues, along with Gulf Coast Blues, in Race Records, and they were hits. They were what would be our top 10 songs on the radio today. She became a headliner and major attraction to the theater's owners' booking association.
So what was that, like a performing show of some sort?
Right, it was a musical theater that catered to African Americans.
So she sounded really all over the place with recordings and theater performances?
She was everywhere. With her high volume in shows and recordings, this led her to be the highest paid African American performer.
Good for her. Sounds like she did well in her career. But, okay, let's shift a bit. Tell us a bit about her personal life.
Sure, this is where things get really interesting. Before that, though, let's listen to one of her early hits, Downhearted Blues by Bessie Smith.
I'm so disgusted, heartbroken.
Bonjour à tous and welcome back to Your Grammar Rocks on KBYS. Je suis Philippe Girard.
And I'm Chance Gordon. Today we are covering the life of Bessie Smith.
So far we have looked into her childhood, her early career, and now we are getting into her personal life.
Her personal life was nothing short of crazy.
Well, most famous musicians have wild lives outside of their career.
She definitely fits the bill. But first, let's start with her marriage. She was married to Jack G in 1923 after her first record was released.
I'm just going to guess that this was not a normal marriage.
Yeah, they had their ups and downs. They both cheated on each other and they both knew about it. Smith was also known to have bisexual relations with women she toured with.
I'm having major flashbacks from the show that we did on Josephine Baker, because she was also bisexual. But anyway, why did they stay together then if they didn't like each other?
Her husband, Jack, was a foundation piece for her. He kept her grounded. When he was not around, she would go off the deep end with drugs and alcohol. Meanwhile, he enjoyed the money she brought in.
So to her, the husband was the person that was there to keep her grounded in place.
Yes, but it was only at times. At other times, she did not want her husband to be around so that she can party and mess around. According to Ruby Walker, someone who traveled with Bessie Smith during her career, Jack was someone Bessie went to when she wanted to quiet down, be a wife, and a homebody.
So are there any more stories about Bessie and her personal life?
There are. This one is from Ruby Walker. Once Smith finished her recordings, she went missing for an entire week. But it turns out she was out of town in a hotel with another man.
So I assume that they had people looking for her during all that time?
They sure did. Bessie just didn't want people to know she was away with a man for a week, so she lied about it.
Wow. So what did she do to avoid trouble?
Well, Walker suggested that she say she was in an accident and was resting up. Bessie agreed that this was a good idea.
Well, how did they make it seem that Bessie Smith was in an accident, even though she was perfectly fine the whole time?
That was a problem they had as well. Bessie purposely fell down a flight of stairs to give herself an injury.
You're kidding. That actually worked?
According to Ruby Walker, it happened right in front of her eyes, and it worked perfectly due to the fact that she did get hurt while doing this.
That is crazy. Is there anything else like this about her?
Well, nothing to this extreme, but there was one time where she was fired before even going on stage.
That's a rare thing in show business. Normally, the show must go on. So what happened that day?
Well, she had a run-in with the producer about where she was going to sing in the background.
That sounds like a simple task.
Apparently not. She and the producer ran into each other backstage during a costume change, and she let out a slew of curse words.
Was he not her boss?
Oh, he was, but she just didn't care, and he felt disrespected. So he told his people to pay her and send her on her way.
Well,
I know, she was known for having a feisty attitude and doing things her way.
I believe that's enough about her personal life. So let's get back into her career. When did she become the empress of the blues?
Well, we'll get into that, but first let's listen to some of her music. Our next song is A Good Man Is Hard to Find by Bessie Smith.
And I need to dedicate that song to a very special lady in my life, my 42-year-old fiancée. Here is A Good Man Is Hard to Find.
We always him plenty smack, madam, treat your man right. Oh, the good man nowadays sure is hard to find.
You're listening to Your Grandma Rocks on KBYS. I'm Chance Gordon.
Et je suis Philippe Girard. Today we are retracing the life of the empress of the blues, Bessie Smith. So far we've learned about her tough childhood, her early career, and her tumultuous personal life. So what are we going to get into now?
We're going to focus on the later half of her career.
So we finally get to know why she was called the Empress of the Blues?
Yes, however, that would not be her first title. She would first receive the title of Queen of Blues, and that came from Columbia Records.
So how did she get promoted from Queen to Empress?
Well, the recording company didn't change her name, it was the press that changed it. It was due to her ability to sound regal and sensual.
After listening to some of her songs, I understand that resonating. She was regal and sensual.
Her music was something that reached many people. It was very relatable to the working class, especially women. Her feisty personality we learned about went into her music. Her music was meant to inspire women to be fearless, independent, and free.
So why did she point her music toward women?
I think it was due to the fact that during those times, women, especially African American women, weren't treated the best, and she wanted them to realize it did not need to be that way.
So she wanted women to realize that they deserve to be respected, right?
Exactly. Smith contributed 160 records for Columbia Records, recording with legends like Louis Armstrong, but her career was cut short due to the Great Depression in 1929.
Well, that's understandable. Most people lost their jobs during the Great Depression and they weren't able to go to clubs anymore and spend money like this. So bye-bye roaring 20s.
Right. She would record 4 songs for OK Records around 1933. Those were her last recordings.
Last? Looking at the timetable, she would have been in her late 30s, early 40s then? She was still young.
You're right, but unfortunately, she didn't live a very long life after that.
Why do musicians always die young?
We have to get into the accident that cost her life. I should start by saying that she and her former husband, Jack G., did eventually split, so Bessie Smith married another man.
Okay.
So her new husband was driving and hit a vehicle in front of them, causing Smith to sustain horrible injuries that led her to having her arm amputated. It was something she never recovered from and passed away in the hospital on September 26, 1937, at the age of 43.
Wow, 43 years young. What a tragic event.
She passed on, but her legend continued, so much so that 3 of her songs were placed into the Grammy Hall of Fame. Her song Downhearted Blues, which we listened to earlier, was inducted into the National Recording Registry, which is for songs that are important culturally and historically.
Did she receive any awards on top of that?
Lots of them. Blues Hall of Fame, Big Band and Jazz Hall of Fame, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and the list goes on. She also received a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award.
All right, you convinced me. She was more than worthy of the title, the Empress of the Blues. From the streets of Tennessee to blues legend.
Well, that's it for today. This program was funded by a Juliet Hartdner Grant for Women in the Humanities. For more information on how to help finance fellowships at McNeese, contact the Foundation at 337-475-5888.
This program was also sponsored by the History Department at McNeese State University. To apply for a degree in history or any other field, please contact the McNeese Admissions Office at 337-475-5504.
Goodbye.
Merci et au revoir. We will leave you with Take Me for a Buggy Ride by Bessie Smith.
In this town, I heard you say you was going away and leaving here to stay. I feel like I could cry, and here's the reason why. Daddy, you really know your stuff when you take me for a buggy ride. I like you when you got your habits on. You can shift a gear with so much pride. I get a funny feeling when you gaze into my eyes. You give me such a me feel fine. I guess it's funny feeling up in down my spine. You don't need no teaching, you don't need no guide when you take me for a buggy ride. Your loving ain't so 40 in the park, but you a loving poor creature in the dark. You ain't so hot, what can it be that makes me say, Daddy, take all of me? You always ready every time that I call. What I like about you, you never stall. You ain't no preacher, you a good old soul. You done sent salvation to my very soul. I can't keep, but I'm satisfied when you take me for